Thank you very much. Good evening. Welcome once again to the Gildarie Freddie Show. We coming to you live right here on the Guyanese Critic Facebook page. We also, if you don't have Facebook, it's also on YouTube, Guyanese Critic. And so it is August the 10th, and this evening, as usual, I'm going to say welcome to my co-host, Freddie Kissoon. And we have with us here Dr. David Hinds, a WPA member. He's a former columnist. I think he's also writing at the same time. And so we also have, he's also, my apologies. We have some technical difficulties, and we're trying to get that. And if you're hearing us loud and clear, just give us your comments. But Dr. David Hinds is no stranger to Guyana. He has been in the thick of things with his commentaries. He's also been a columnist of Kaicho News, and he's also has his own social media postings as well as a show. So this evening, of course, we had indicated to you that Dr. Hinds is going to be here, and he has been offering a lot of opinions. So has Freddie, and we want to talk some of the big issues which are affecting us: ethnic relations, the direction of this government, the role of the opposition. And as usual, when we have this show here, I would pass you over to my friend Freddie Kissoon. What did I say, Kissoon? I didn't deliberately do that, but go right ahead, Freddie.
David? Okay.
Long time, Freddie.
Okay, just let me indicate something about Friday evening program. David, just give me a few seconds. To our viewers, we have changed the format for Friday. We chose not to have a guest, but Gildarie and I will entertain your questions. There have been a deluge of questions over the past weeks, well, for me, over the past years on my email address. And Friday we'll be fielding your questions. All the questions that are answerable, I say answerable because some questions are not answerable, questions in relation to your personal life. But Friday evening, Gildarie and I would be interacting with you, and we'll see how that format goes. David, once again, David, this is an academic program. This is also a program with deep political shapes and attitudes. And I want to be frank, you can expect extreme courtesy from me and Gildarie, you're our guest, but I want you to know I will speak my mind. And I would think the same thing for you. I will begin with a statement that you obviously will react to. It's not a question, it's a statement. I have known you a long time. I have been an academic a very long time. I have over 50 years of political, social, and human rights activism. And I say this, David, from the bosom of my heart. I have not seen even in the bad days with the UC Guiana and Hamilton Green, I have not seen anyone that have so consistently preached a diatribe, a sermon, a rhetoric that invokes race hate.
That's your question?
That's my opening statement. I have never seen it. I would think, David, you are the most consistent preacher of ethnic animosity in this country. And I say that with candid political conviction.
And I want to see you with candid political conviction. Black people love what I preach. And you are no judge of black people as you often pretend to be. I am preaching love for black people and concern for their condition. I understand why my detractors would see it as the opposite. A lot of people, black people, Indian people who do the same thing, they see them as preaching race hate. I do not encourage it because I'm intelligent enough to know the difference between race hate and race love. I love my race, and that's what I preach.
Shots fired across the
Well,
bow.
you could, in your mind, in your own mind, you could think so. Now, you talk about Indian. I've never seen anyone from the PPP any multiracial organization that have with relentlessness speak about black people being denied, being demonized, being mistreated by you as any other member of any other race. And the thing is, you've consistently done this and you have shown no evidence. Before Gildarie come in, David, you speak for black people?
My evidence is a book a book you compiled
10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's my.
And
let me speak now. You spoke. My
society isn't dynamic.
My evidence is
Freddie, allow the
a book.
man to
Is a book that you wrote, and
Well, good. I'm not racial.
And your
I'm not in there. I'm
and your
Freddie,
ideology.
allow the man to speak.
Your ideology. You said that the PPP under Mr. Jagdeo practiced ideological racism. He took you to court. I was.
And I'm an Indian, right? I'm an Indian.
I was
An
asked
Indian
by,
said so.
I was asked by you to be a star witness. I was then a credible witness of what racism is. And today, when I speak about racism, I am preaching race hate. Listen, I know what race hate is. I know what race hate is. I have never, in my long career in public life, never spoke about black superiority. I struggled. I went to jail fighting against a black government. The last black government, you and all of us point out all their transgressions. You cannot sit here.
You embrace them within election.
You cannot sit here. But you need to give me a chance. I'll walk off this.
Freddie. Okay.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
All right.
I made that point. I made that arrangement with Mr. Gildarie that I'm not coming here for any personal abuse. And you already start to abuse me by telling me I rig election. I did not come here for that.
I never said you rig election.
And Freddie, you have to learn to stop abusing people personally, especially black people.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hinds. We have an look, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a...
That's racist.
I think, Freddie...
You just said I did a dossier,
Freddie.
You just said this Indian guy did something on
Freddie, let's continue. Look, we're going to ask some questions.
So why am I abusing black people and I did the research?
You do that every day. You abuse people, black people, every day from 2020 to now.
And you don't abuse Indian people?
No.
You don't abuse.
No, you show me one evidence in which I have abused. I can
show me the evidence.
I can do an entire program and don't call people name. I deal with issues. I don't call people name. You are always calling people name. You abuse Guyana. You abuse this body. You abuse that body. Freddie, I am not sitting here and allow you to abuse me and abuse black people. I'm going to be in your face.
But I don't have a problem with that.
All right, let's in the face. But let's have our Freddie.
Yeah.
There's only one.
I'm going to be the host. I prefer for you to ask me questions. I don't want. I don't want Freddie to ask me questions.
Look, all right. Look, there are too many issues on the table. I do believe that we have mature people in the room here. One's a doctor, one is an academic. I barely finished high school, Freddie, but I do believe that I have enough knowledge to know what is bothering me as a citizen of this country. Mr. Hinds, you said that you speak on behalf of certain sections of society. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, at this point.
Do you view yourself?
I speak on behalf of black people and poor people.
Okay. How would you describe yourself? As a politician, as an activist? What would you say?
I am a political activist.
I'm going to bring you head straight into some of the questions that I wanted to ask because I do believe that I'm a decent citizen of Guyana, and when I see things wrong, I sit here in this position here, not as any back of any political party, but as an independent Guyanese who wants to have some question answered. When Freddie engaged myself about having a show, I said, Freddie, I don't want any parties or any business back the show until such time that I believe and I should be comfortable with who's backing the show. As of now, we have no financing. I don't care who it is, whether we got to run it, I got to take money out of my pocket, I'm going to do that. Mr. Hinds, my first question to you, sir, is you were recorded, or I saw reports of a statement that you made, and that's why I asked you a question. If you speak as a as a politician, or you speak as an activist, you made a statement about being extremely shocked seeing a Indian or somebody who's not black selling black pudding. Could you put it in context? Why did you say that, and is it because you explained it to me?
No, and again, you might get sued because that's not what I said.
Thank you.
I said I was at the market and I saw a crowd, and people said, "You know what's going on in that crowd? Is black people buying black pudding there?" So I went and I looked and I saw somebody who's not African selling black pudding. And my point is that black people ought not to leave their villages where they produce goods and go outside of their community to buy those goods. I know of no Indian who's going to leave Enmore and go to Buxton to look for duck curry. Duck curry is an Indian delicacy, it's an Indian dish. And if I were to go to Buxton and see a set of Indians at Buxton Baghdad side at the market stand up for duck curry, I would ask, what's going on here? And that's the question. I gave that as an example because the theme of my conversation was that in a fractured society, people ought to your first line of action is your community. And what you don't produce in your community, then you go outside of your community and you look to buy that, right? This is an ethnic society. This is not a non-ethnic society. And we live in our enclaves. And we have to first look after our enclaves. Our villages are suffering from a hemorrhaging of money and hemorrhaging of talents and so forth. Everything we go out of our community to buy. And so there is not circulation of monies within the African Guyanese community. And so I was arguing that a revival of the village economy must start first and foremost by buying what you produce. You go in any economics 101 class, they tell you the first thing an economy does, a country does, is that it produces for itself and it sells the excess in order to gain revenue.
Gildarie, just hold a sec. David said he wants you to ask questions. I don't think David could be serious that he sits down here as our guest and he only wants you to ask questions. He said he will be in my face. First,
my face.
I don't have a problem
Right.
with him being in my face. Number two, I would be quite happy to return the compliment to be a guest on his program. I have nothing to hide, and I analyze this society, and I see it the way I see it. The way I see David Hinds is somebody who constantly preaches race animosity. Now, it's up to him, and he has that right and that privilege.
Could you give 2 examples, Freddie?
One, the very black pudding thing. It's pregnant. It's pregnant with racial advocacy. And if he didn't mean that, he put it over in a very ugly way by saying when he went there, when there was an Indian woman selling black pudding, he could have generalized it in terms of geography and say when he went there, it was someone from Monrepo, a village not known for producing those kinds of dishes. He didn't use demography, he didn't use geography, he used an Indian woman. The second,
I can sue him because I never used the word Indian woman. Never! Freddie didn't listen to the tape.
I listened to your tape.
No, you didn't. You listened to an excerpt. You didn't. I never used the word.
Let me finish?
I never used the word Indian. And so many times lawyers have accused me to sue you for that.
Freddie,
I never used the word Indian.
David, if you sue someone, do you know the amount of programs that you are on, that you speak about this government and what it, you know the sedition, the libel that you constantly sprout about what this government is with. Most of the ministers could sue you for
I
libel.
libel the government? People libel government?
People libel government if a government is racist.
Okay.
If a government is racist, the president.
Why did they libel you?
If a government, no, you speaking about libel.
Freddie, get off it.
You speaking
No.
about
Freddie,
speaking
get
about
off it.
you
Okay.
speaking of you libel people in
You
your
are
program all the time.
accusing me
Yeah.
of using the word Indian when I never.
And that is a problem for you.
I
You-
never use the word Indian.
And that is a problem.
Okay,
for you.
must be
what is it that the
factual.
tape said, Mr. Hinds?
The
What is it?
tape said what I explained to you. Exactly as I said there. And I went on to say,
Was anything said about Blackburn, and in what context you understood that to what you would have said?
I said,
When they who you said was selling the
Freddie,
black
the
pudding.
man has the floor,
Yeah.
please.
Well, he interrupted me just now. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Hinds.
I said the person was not African.
Could somebody
splitting
who's
hairs,
hold on, Freddie?
yes.
I have a follow-up question. Could somebody who knows that, or if you're a thinking Guyanese,
Yes.
when you hear that statement,
Yes.
would it be? Could I say that I could conclude based on that statement alone that you made that I'm saying that because that woman is not a black woman, therefore it could be an Indian woman? It is
Yes,
too
yes,
feminine.
yes, you can
And
arrive
if
at
that
But don't
is-
say that I say that.
Oh, okay.
But they're
If
splitting
that-
hairs when you didn't say
Freddie,
it.
all right,
Freddie, be
I have a
quiet,
follow-up question
man.
for the gentleman. My next question to
Yes.
you, sir, therefore, if that is the case, could somebody who's listening to you say that's a racist statement?
No, because I then went on to say, if you African people must buy outside of your community, buy from the ordinary lady that is selling at the corner, buy from that vendor. The people who are working against you are the big business who are enabling the government. That is why I'm saying people listen to an excerpt that was diced by a government minister, put out there, and
The man
didn't
could
listen
sue
to
you.
and didn't listen to my tape. Didn't listen to my tape. I said the Indian lady selling at the corner is not your problem, black people. Your problem are the big businesses that are enabling this government. What they did is take out a slice of it, didn't put it in the larger context of what I was saying.
Is that something that is good for this country? You're talking boycott. Am I correct? You're talking boycott.
I'm talking first and foremost self-sufficiency. And secondly, that you boycott those businesses that are working against your interests, including black businesses.
So, Freddie, you have a question here.
I have several
Go right
questions. I have several questions. The question of you asked me to name two things. I just named one. I am not convinced about the black pudding theory of here. I am not convinced.
There's no theory. Go and watch the tape.
I know rhetoric. I've watched several tapes by you, and in each tape there is a relentless and inexorable and insane emphasis on black people as if
Because I
as
love
if
them.
you-
I love them.
You know,
I love
that
them.
Songs, you know what?
I love them.
Everybody love their
No,
family.
they have been oppressed. They slaved for this country. They underwent more oppression than other groups, and they need love because the rest of the world hates them.
I am
And
not from the
giving
rest
them
of the
love.
world. I am putting it to you from the time the indentured laborers came here. The white, the mulatto, and African people have denigrated them from the time they came here and still denigrate them. There have been more systematic violence by African Guyanese on Indian in the history of this country minus slavery. From the time of emancipation, Indians have been scandalized, have been treated contemptuously, and from the time of the Wisma massacre, there have been consistent violence thrust upon them. My conclusion is, if there is any race that has been boxed in a corner and treated badly and need love, it's the Indian people.
Is that race hate you just preach there?
I preach historical
No.
facts and rebuttal to
That's
you.
what I do.
Rebuttal.
That's what I do. Shake me hand. The two
You have
of
to
us,
shake hands.
the two of us are on the
I like
same
that.
page.
Us are not the
You are preaching. You are preaching
not on the
Indian
same-
victimhood.
I am not
I
preaching
am
that.
preaching black victimhood.
But there are facts to support
And
one or the
there
other.
are millions of books of facts to support what I say about black people.
Would you say, and I saw a question being posed, somebody sent a question, Dr. Hinds.
Yeah,
The majority of the workers in the sugar industry,
yeah.
could we say they're Indo-Guyanese?
Yes,
would you agree with
yes,
that?
yes.
And the closing of the estates, which would have seen over 6,000, 7,000 of them sent home, would you say that is systematic, a deliberate act by the government of the day then to stifle, to discriminate against Indo-Guyanese?
No, and I can understand that people come into that conclusion because the way in which it was done. But if you look, that same government that knocked off those people pumped billions of dollars into the sugar industry. So the government has a mixed bag. It pumped billions into the sugar industry, and in the process of right sizing or attempting to right size the industry, it did it in a clumsy way because it did not pay attention to race. Had it paid attention to race, it would have said, look, this is an industry that is politically sensitive. The people who are going to be affected are mainly Indian Guyanese. And in our racially delicate society, it's going to be hard to make that sell. And so I am not questioning the policy. I do not believe the intention was racist, but I can understand how Indian Guyanese will come to that conclusion. I disagree with the conclusion. I disagree, but I understand how Indian Guyanese would come to that conclusion. That is why I've relentlessly saying that in this society, to avoid race, to avoid the issue of race, is to put yourself in a lot of trouble because you're going to be implementing policies that you think is race neutral. But the victims don't see it as race neutral, and that's where the coalition got in trouble.
Freddie?
What he has said there cannot be supported by facts, and we are coming down to the position where it's like an atheist and someone who believes in God arguing. He said the sugar worker thing was not racial. Let me tell you what, and let me tell David Hinds what his colleague, let me tell David what his colleague in the APNU AFC government, we'll come to that. No, just wait, please. We'll come to that. He make out a case where the sugar workers thing, and by extension 42,000 Indian families were affected. But he said that was nothing to do with race. Let me quote.
I didn't say there was nothing to do with race.
Could you let me finish?
Freddie, I said I do not believe the intent was racial, but I can see how the outcome can be perceived as racial. Don't speak for me.
Everything
I am eloquent enough to speak for myself.
And you're in my face, but it's all right. This is what Raphael Trotman said, which is an indictment of racial bigotry, racial discrimination by a government of which he was part, and so was the famous Clive Thomas and Rupert Wright. We'll come to that. In December 2020, this is what Raphael Trotman wrote, that each time the PPP is in government, half of the population are discriminated against and feel left out. Every time the PNC is in power, the same thing happens. And he started from 57 with Jagan, and he brought it up to 2015 with David Hinds' government. Now, Trotman was part of the essential war room of the government. And Trotman is saying that his own government discriminated against Indians. Read the letter. Go and do your research.
If you quote Trotman correctly, I don't think that's what Trotman is saying.
But nobody's quoting you correctly. And nobody's quoting those.
And what Trotman, if what you report Trotman say, I completely agree with it. There's nothing to disagree there with.
Well, then
whenever PPP is in power, African people feel that they're oppressed. Whenever the PNC is in power, Indian people feel they're oppressed. That's a fact.
Trotman left out that every time the PNC loses an election, Indian people are mauled and dismembered. 92, I was on the street with Colin Smith, God rest his soul, and Father Morrison. They lost power, they brutalized Indian. 97, they lost power, they brutalized Indian. 2001, 7 years of violence in Buxton. 2020, Cotton Tree. And you have the temerity to say Indian people are not victims of black racism?
I said that. You see what is happening? That's why you can't have a conversation with him.
No, you can have a conversation with you.
No. And he sits here and he talks about Cotton Tree and don't talk about bad settlement on March 6th. Freddie's dishonest. Covertly so. He sits there.
Well, I'm not going to, you see, I am not going to sue. You're trying to sue people. You're calling me pervertly dishonest. And for say that you use the word Indian, you want to sue people.
Did Indian people not brutalize black people on March 6th?
What March?
Bad settlement.
An Indian guy was shot down. An Indian guy was shot down for protesting his right to vote in the 2020 election. And there was no big riot.
Did Indian people
the guy who was selling guns at Golden Grove.
Did Indian people brutalize black people on March 6th, Freddie Kissoon?
Where?
At Bad Settlement. Did they pelt children in buses? You had gone to Canada, no?
No, I was right there.
You were right there.
I know about the bus pelting.
But you was,
I know about the bus
but you was
pelting.
sleeping.
I wrote that was wrong.
What about...
I know that was wrong,
but just say the other side was wrong and leave it at that.
No. The bus pelting a bus and burning down people's houses, mauling them, beating them up, are the same?
Freddie, the police killing a young man and people burning a few stalls are the same?
Killing a
are the same?
You want me to explain the difference?
No, I don't want you to explain the difference.
No, you don't want to.
I don't want you to explain the difference.
You don't want me to explain.
Let me ask. Okay,
No, wait. Don't forget. He said he's going to be in my face. I don't have a problem if he's in my face at all. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem what people say about me. Whatever they want to scandalize me, I'm not going to sue nobody. He can attribute all kinds of things to me, saying pervertly dishonest. I don't know if I should consult my lawyer, but I don't give a damn about consulting my lawyer.
I'm going to check my dictionary.
Let him. Since he called me pervertly dishonest, I'm going to say it to him.
Yes.
He's preaching racism, and he called the black pudding lady an Indian woman. So he could go now and sue. He said he loves black people. What did he do? He was part and parcel of APNU AFC. They're still in jail today.
Me and
They're
you.
still in jail.
Me and you, we were part. You campaigned.
Yeah.
You were in
I
the
campaigned in a multiracial basis.
You were in the FC, I was in the WPA. Me and you were part of the government.
You're not going to come with my face.
No, me and you were part of the
If you're not going to
government.
come with my face, I can be in
You must own the APNU AFC. You campaigned for
I
them.
campaigned for them because I believe
supported them.
in multiracial support.
Me too.
And you believe. Well, yes, you know how much black organization you are founded. I never get up on public TV like you. I love Indian people. I love everybody. I don't give a damn who's Indian and who's black. You got an obsession with black people. It's a good thing you don't live here and people don't, black youths don't pay attention to you. I remember you was you're there with a bullhorn in Victoria. Undermine this government. And a homeless lady was your only audience. But let me
At least a homeless lady was my... You don't have any audience.
Oh, I don't have
No,
any
you
audience?
don't have any audience.
Oh, Indian people don't like me.
Huh?
Motivation people don't like
No,
me.
Indian people believe you're a
They
scam.
like you.
They believe you're a scam. You play the Indian, but you then tomorrow go and say
Black
you're
people
not
don't
Indian.
believe you're a scam. Black people don't believe a man who come here and make mischief, then fly over to United States and live quite happily like Whitford Burke, who got the temerity to tell people to go and harm people, but then say, you can't touch me, You know where I live in?
You
I
talk,
live in
you talking
so
about Rickford Borg or you talking about me?
I'm talking about you and Rickford Borg.
Why you
I'm talking
like
about you and
to,
Rickford Borg.
why you like to
I'm talk-
abuse people?
You call me perverted.
You know you know if you meet Rickford Borg, you're not going to say them things in front of his face.
I would say to anybody, David Hinds.
Thank you very much.
Don't dare, David Hinds. Don't
As they
dare.
say in cricket, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to border now. So back to border. In the 80s growing up, Mr. Hinds,
Yeah.
I was told, or at least this is what I learned, that the WPA came to the conclusion that the PNC murdered Rodney.
Yeah.
Fast forward somewhere between 2010 to 2022 now. The WPA has formed alliances with the APNO, with the PNCR, in becoming APNO.
Yeah.
Could you say if there's a difference or individuality of the WPA in that coalition there? Because for some people, I've seen the opinions being offered that there's no difference. How do you explain your position now as against the position of the 80s, and has anything changed? Do you still believe that?
The 80s to now, Guyana has changed enormously. The world has changed enormously. One thing that we know
People
is that
principles don't change.
one thing that we know
People principles,
is that
people ethical character
is
don't
that
change.
the world has changed. Guyana.
But I'm still kill Rodney.
Guyana has changed.
Yes or no?
The PPP said the PNC killed the ballot box martyrs in 1973. Yet the PPP argued for a national patriotic front with the PNC. The PPP in 1985, under Burnham, started talks towards a motherland power-sharing government between the PPP and the PNC. You can't live in Guyana and ignore the PPP and the PNC. Whatever your problems are with them, the PNC leadership is responsible for Rodney's murder. That's our position then, our position now, and our position tomorrow.
So explain to me.
I'm speaking to this. Have manners. You don't have manners.
You got
You're
You
gonna
don't
have your
manners.
say.
You don't have manners, right? And so, therefore, in the interest of this country, we have to engage the PPP and the PNC. There was, at one time, the WPA engaged the PPP. We were part of the Patriotic Coalition for Democracy because the PNC was the common enemy. Today, from our perspective, the PPP is the common enemy, and we engage the PNC, the AFC, and others. The Palestinians will have to engage the Israelis if there's going to be peace in that part of the world. We will have to engage each other in this
Gildarie,
country. And
he's leaving us.
Freddie, allow me to speak. All right? At the end of the day, we have to engage each other for there to be peace in this government. Right? I will join a power sharing government with the PPP and the PNC because I think ultimately that is where we have to end up. It doesn't matter how I feel about the PNC or how I feel about the PPP. It's how I feel about the future of Guyana. And I want a future for Guyana where all ethnic groups are able to live here in relative security, in relative peace, and can say, this is a just Guyana that I am part of. And for me, it's not about PPP and PNC sharing one another power. It's about those two parties sharing people's power. And that is what explains our praxis. We have problems with the PNC. We have problems with the PPP. There's no question about that. But does it mean that we would not engage them? The PPP wouldn't say that. The PNC doesn't like the PPP, but the PNC will engage the PPP.
Gildarie.
And that is ultimately where we have to go.
Well,
so why single out the WPA for abuse because we are sitting with adversaries and not single out others?
Well, that is an easy question to answer. I saw David Hinds. There is so much that is misleading that this program will have to go over an hour because David Hinds and his hypocrisy have to be exposed. I saw David Hinds on a program, and let me see if I could gesticulate and imitate him about this demonic leader Forbes Burnham. This is what he said on one of his programs. I own in Bonham. Yes, I own in Bonham. I own in Bonham. And I don't give a damn who think about it. And at the back of that cynical exclamation was Walter Rodney's photograph. Now he's going to say, of course, all viewers can anticipate what he's going to say. I take that out of context. But there is more on the masturbatory relation between the WPA and the PNC. One, he loves black people. And yet today, he was part of a government with the famous Rupert Rupnerine and Clive Thomas, who were revolutionaries that when you were small admired, and that I took part in their activities. Today, 16, 17, 18-year-old youths are still in jail for one sniff. And he was part of the APNU.
Me and you. Don't try to knock me.
But I am.
You and I were part of it.
You're going to let me finish?
You and I were part of it.
You're going to let me finish? You're in my face all the time. I'm talking about the black people that you love.
You love them at one time.
I still love black people.
No, you don't love them no more.
I love Guyanese people. I don't love black and Indian.
You don't love black people no more.
Let me speak.
You change up.
You see how you are. You see the arrogance and the bullyism in you.
Come back to the points. Let's come to the points.
What? I love black people. He's there in this program. People watching him. I love black
because
people.
Of black.
He's a betrayer of black people. The PNC that he loved Bonham have done nothing for black people. Youths smoking a sniff are still in jail, and Clive Thomas and Rupert Rupnerine and the WPA had power for 5 years. African soldiers, doctors, and civil servants have to retire at 55. NIS pension start at 60. They had a commission on the public service, and this Indian guy went on that commission and appealed, it's on record, it's on film, for the retirement age to raise at 60. He loved black people, but he didn't go to the land commission and ask for that. This Indian guy that you just said did research on discrimination against African people. I'm glad how he presented my multiracial credentials.
No, that's not multiracial.
He is my best. Actually, he's turned out to be my good friend. Actually, he's turned out to be a very good advocate of my multiracialism. I'm glad black people who didn't know that I compiled an academic research of discrimination against black people, they now know, courtesy of David Hinds. He gave me the opportunity to say that this Indian guy named Kissoon appeared in front of the Commission of Inquiry and asked Dr. Lachman, the chair, that public servant salary must be raised. Teachers, policemen's salaries were not raised, and they were in power for 5 years. You know why he gets up here and say, I love black people? That's the only thing they got. You know, every time they speak about black people, that's the only thing they got to fool black people.
This African.
That's the only thing they got to fool. They ain't got any other thing to hold on upon. For 5 years, Clive Thomas, David Granger, who edited a book on black history, for 5 years they failed black people. So guess what happened? They fooled black people on the elections. They fooled black people about legislation to empower them. So guess what happened? They've reached the end. It's diminishing return of promises. So if you look carefully at every program he has, every time there's an African Day, we got to get our share of this country. It's the only mantra, it's the only sermon they have to tell black people anything. They can't tell black people anything. He can't sit down here tonight and say what the WPA has done for black people 2015 to 2020. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Tell them you were part of the WPA.
And
tell them you were part of the AFC.
Yeah, but I criticize them.
Tell them you were
should talk about.
Tell them you were part of the AFC.
No,
and tell them that this black man with this color ain't getting from my head. This black man with this color.
Take some of mine.
When Indian people were being beaten out of Buxton, this black man with a sister called Andai, and another black man he loved to abuse, he used to quiet, said not in our name.
You're using the word abuse. You're abusing me tonight.
I have a question, gentlemen.
This one talks about multiracial
You're pimping Andai.
This
You're
one
pimping
talk about
and
multiracial
You're pimping and
credentials.
You're pimping and
This
You
Freddie
never
is pervertly dishonest. Freddie said he look at the program.
get my
where-
lawyer. Get my
where
lawyer
I
on the
say,
phone. Get
here,
my lawyer on the phone.
Gildarie,
I'm going to sue
here
you.
is what I said.
I'm going to sue you.
I said they're Indianists who have made peace with their Indian devils. And if they can make peace with their Indian devils, don't tell me that I cannot make peace with my black devils. That's what I said. This pervertly dishonest boy takes some part of what you say and twist it. That is what Freddie is famous for in Guyana.
Gentlemen, I need a stiff drink after this. I'm not a drinker, but I think that might help. We are at the point where we're pumping oil and we're producing at the moment, and we're now moving to have gas onto shore.
Yeah.
Lots of foreigners in this country. Have we lost sight as to who the real enemies are in fighting among ourselves? Is this playing into the hands of some people would describe the investors, some of them as colonialists? Freddie and Mr. Hinds, I want to ask you take a couple minutes each to probably have a discussion on that.
I don't have to take a minutes to. I don't believe foreign investors coming here to this country that the PNC helped to destroy and the WPA should be treated as colonialists. They're investors. They pump them. You know what is thing about this country? You know what is unsavory about this country? Is the amount of sadists we have, that something has come over this country, that every time something good is about to happen to Guyana, you see some political or some ideological or some ethnic twist put to it. This thing, I want to come back to him. Wait, you sleeping?
I'm listening to you.
Oh, I want to come back. No, I thought you're sleeping because maybe the heat is too much. You tell me, let me spare you.
What eat, Freddie?
Yup,
Tell me-
The man asks you a profound question, you give a simplistic answer.
He asked me.
Man, finish talking. Finish talking. Let me.
Yeah, you do your propaganda.
Let me engage the man question.
He asked me a question that has two dimensions.
And you go.
Whether-
You go to WPA and PNC. PPP.
But you can't-
PPP is not part of the problem anymore for you.
I think all of them.
But
are
call
part of the-
PPP.
All of them. But you
But
don't
call
want.
PPP.
No. But why I must play your game? You don't call WPA. You don't talk with the failure of Clive Thomas and Rupert Rupnerine. Why I must play your game? You got sacred cows, but I must not.
You have a
sacred
problem
cows.
with Clive Thomas and Rupert Rupner.
I have a problem because they failed this country. They failed young men.
no,
They failed people like Gildarie.
You have a personal problem with those
I don't have
men.
any personal.
Yes,
problem.
Freddie.
I have a.
It's personal.
I have a.
It's
What
personal.
Y'all
personal?
continue. You have
What-
a point, Freddie. You finish?
You ask a question that has.
Have we lost sight? Who are the real enemies here?
Who the real enemies?
Yes, sir.
The Guyanese people are their own enemies because when they see a good thing coming for selfish political reason, they jump and call investors colonialists. The very investors that we are carping about are investing in African countries. Do you know what the Chinese are doing in Kenya? They're modernizing the railway system. They're doing a whole set of things for Africa. You know what our companies are investing all over the place, but they come here. It's like what Isabella de Carey said. We must stop having trade relations with Saudi Arabia when all other Indian countries, African countries have a relation with Saudi Arabia. So I answer the question, and I will answer it again, and then he will come in with his ethnic twist to who getting what and who getting what. I believe that when investors come here, there must be negotiations to see that the deal publicly appears to be equitable. We are in no position, this country is in no position to go to multi-trillion-dollar investors and call the shots. When GATT was transformed into the World Trade Organization, the body that now dictates trade for all the countries in the world. Third world didn't have any say in it. You know who composed the rules of the WTO? Europe and United States. So this carping on investors, the very investors are all over this country, but guess what we do? This little obscure Guyana must confront these investors because they're colonialists. Over to you, Mr.
Dr.
Boyle.
Hinds.
Leonard, you've asked a question that deserves a very searching answer. I don't think there is any one real enemy. The way in which our history has developed, it means...
I thought the government of Guyana is the real enemy of Guyana. You said that so many times.
It means that our history has left us with a problem of underdevelopment, and then our ethnic division compounds that underdevelopment. All right? And so, therefore, when you have a situation where foreigners come in, and I agree with Freddie, you're a small society, you can't call no shots. But the little leverage that you have is compromised when you are internally fighting among yourself. So you of course you don't have any, you can't call it shot, but at least you got a little space for yourself. And in Guyana, that space is being diminished by the fact that we are fighting.
But you contributed that daily.
Fighting
daily, you can't see yourself.
Among ourselves. And so therefore, it's not a case of the real enemy being external forces. It's that it is one of the enemies of development in our society, along with our ethnic problems. And the thing is in this society is that we play around. We play around with ethnicity. Sometimes we say it don't exist. Stupidness, it exists. At other times we blame this side. We blame that side. All right? And so we do not confront the problem with the kind of political maturity that it deserves. In 1961, AUC Guyana headed an organization called the African Society for Racial Equality, not African Society for Black Superiority, African Society for Racial Equality, which says that African people believe that racial equality is essential in this country. And he put forward a simple formula. He said, look, there's the prime ministership. Why don't you all share it? It's called joint premiership. Both political parties objected to it. The rest is history. And we continue to do so. All right? And so I think that we're not going to get plenty more than we are getting now from the oil. I mean, we're fooling ourselves if we believe we're going to get plenty, but we can get some more. We could get some more if we are able to solve the racial problem in this country.
We can solve it when you exacerbate it every day. That's the problem with you. You can't see it.
You the start of philosophy.
You preach nothing motivation.
You the start of philosophy. Sometimes things have to be exacerbated in order to be solved. You the start of philosophy. You are dishonest. Freddie, you are so patently dishonest.
Ladies and gentlemen, back to border.
You contribute nothing.
I see Critic just walk into the studio looking very mesmerized or whatever you want to say. Good afternoon, Critic.
Just as a form of security for you gentlemen.
All right. I want to ask, just in closing very quickly, because we got to keep it in our time. Gentlemen, what evidence exists that Indian people are being discriminated against more than black, or vice versa? Anyone, you take one and you take one, and we close it with that. Is there any evidence, or let me clarify that a little more. I want this question answered. Are Indians being victimized or discriminated more than the other? What evidence do you have?
I deal with classes. I was schooled in understanding society by examining class structure. I think Karl Marx's contribution is invaluable. I believe, as post-colonial third world, but I can only speak in Guyana. Post-colonial third world began to settle down, class structure began to crystallize, and the working class didn't see the dream of colonial, anti-colonial struggle. And I believe that there are serious, large demographic sections of this society that need to be economically elevated, and they consist of a mass of bodies of Indian and African people. I have no interest absolutely in arguing that black people are not getting the right share of the economic pie as against Indian. I think working class people, you go to Port Morant, you go to Leno, you see very poor Indians. Now, if this gentleman who was once a Rodneyite and was once a Rodney supporter, if he thinks that this thing is black only, and black must have their share of this, and black must have their share of this, I am substituting the word Guyanese, the word working class, for blacks. I see no concerted effort in empowering the mass of Guyanese working class people to bring them up to the level of other classes. I believe Dr. Ali, the president of Guyana, his intentions are good. I think we should give him a chance. I see no concerted effort on the part of this man to say, I will only give one ethnic group. No, that's propaganda for people who are losing support in Guyana.
Dr. Hinds, what evidence is there to suggest that black people are being discriminated more than Indians?
When you come to racial discrimination, there's no scientific evidence. I hear people talk about that all the time. There's nothing scientific about racism. All right? Listen, in Guyana, the vast majority of the wealth in this country has always gone to a very small elite at the top. That has continued.
Is that because of opportunities that were taken by those people, or is it because there's a concerted effort to give it to a few classes? I got a business, I'm Indian. I don't receive anything from the government. Does that mean I'm being given opportunities?
No, and I'm not talking about you.
No,
he's talking about a representative class.
I am talking about a mega class, the class that Freddie talks about. And so at that level, there is a discrimination in terms of the distribution of it. It has always been so because the society is structured that way.
But you have a maldistribution of state power, public servants, soldiers, police.
When you come to the working class, it is not what Indian working class people get. Indian working class people get a pittance. Yeah, you give them a 200 and...
But you must start preaching multiracial politics.
Shut up now, Freddie. Oh, Jesus Christ. $250,000, that may sound plenty, but that's a little bit. The issue is not what Indians get. You're not even giving the black working class half of that.
But
so it is not what Indians get.
I got a fundamental problem there,
yes.
Dr. Hinds. I hear what you're saying, that you love black people and you're representative of black people.
Yeah.
But how
why
do you
can't say you love all people?
Why
can't say you love the working class?
Why can't you say all people? Because all people, as far as I'm concerned, I see poor Indian people.
You know why?
Why you can't say you love all the classes? You should love Indian more, they suffer more.
It has to be assumed that I love Indian people and all people.
It has to be assumed.
It has to be assumed.
The
reason why we black people have to say we are beautiful because the world said we were ugly. The reason we have to say we love each other is because the world has shown us hate from the Middle Passage to now. You have to put this thing in context, all right? This is not, it's like saying when we say Black Lives Matter, why can't we say all lives matter? It is assumed that all lives matter. But we are zeroing in on black lives because it is black lives that have been brutalized. You
can't apply that to Guyana.
You can't
apply that to Guyana.
You do not hear
Indian lives matter.
You do not
Indians
hear
have been more brutalized.
Extrajudicial
You can't apply
killing.
that.
No matter what the government. You don't hear extrajudicial killing in Indian communities and Amerindian communities. Extrajudicial killing, the victims are invariable.
That's putting it out of context.
Freddie, please shut up.
No, man. You're misleading. You're misleading.
Please shut up. Please shut up. You are like a parrot. And that parroting nonsense when people are trying to get serious. You don't hear that. And the reason you don't hear that has nothing to do with, with Indian people. It has to do with the way in which this society has developed. And so, therefore, there is a feeling, even among sections of the black bourgeoisie, of the black middle class, that the black people are worth nothing. You hear that even among us. It's an anti-black sentiment that is normative.
Don't let this man get away with that.
We don't know it because we don't know it because nobody wakes up in the morning. Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, "I don't like black people."
Have you read the Sila Al-Prasad book?
Huh?
Have you read Mr. Sila
No,
Al-Prasad
I have
book?
not read Mr. Sila
He
Al-Prasad
has
book.
made reference to what he perceived. I will just use some words here.
Yeah.
As racism in the police force, and it is very structured in the way that that's my conclusions.
Yeah.
Would you say that is deliberate and that maybe, Freddie?
Gildarie,
I haven't finished my explanation.
what David is projecting here.
Freddie, speak your own view. Let me give my view.
I could
give your view.
What you saying.
Don't worry with me.
I can tell what you say because what you saying, you're misleading people. Black Lives Matter is a valid rampart.
But we
of
don't
American
need
society.
validation from
what
you.
He and other ways
Black people do not need validation from
I am
you.
a Guyanese. I can speak on the plight of any race in this country.
No, you can't.
I can. You
can't.
can't arrogate yourself to tell me why I can.
And you can't.
I am a Guyanese.
You can't. You're
can't tell me.
insultive to us, and we want you to stop it.
You can't tell me how I'm missing. You have no.
Our ancestors will give you your just reward.
You have no authority to say I'm a black man, I'm a black Guyanese. Only I can speak sociologically of Guyanese society. I as an activist and academic have studied the society, and I can speak on the totality and the holism of the society.
You have lost that right.
You've taken
You have lost that right. There was a time when we gave you the privilege to do that. But we took that away from you a long time.
My country.
You can sit there. You can sit there and poo-poo black children being stoned. You can sit and say you love black people.
I love Guyanese people.
One of your
you deal with your ethnic thing.
Subliminally, you don't love
you
black
with
people.
authority in me.
All right.
Yes, I am.
Back to border,
you
gentlemen.
could study this
Freddie,
Indian
Freddie.
guy.
Back to border, gentlemen. We are out of time. So 1 minute, Mr. David Hinds, to wrap up. And Freddie, you have 1 minute, and that's it. No longer than 1 minute.
Well, this conversation
Has to continue.
Or lack thereof here tonight is a reflection of where we are in Guyana. All right? In the sense that people are prepared to play games with people's lives. I am not prepared to play games with people's lives. When Indian people were under attack in Buxton, I went against my group. For years, the black establishment didn't talk to me. They felt I sold out. And now that my own people are under attack, whether Freddie believes it or not, you're telling me I must not? They sent me to school, not just to read and write, but to defend their dignity. And that is what I do. When their dignity is restored, I move on to something else.
Thank you very much. Freddie, 1 minute.
We are witnessing a phantasmagoria of wild imaginations. I don't have a problem with people speaking about an ethnic group being discriminated against. What he is embracing, what he's adumbrating, is fiction. That there is a group in Guyana, an ethnic group called black people, and they have nothing, they're being demonized, and therefore I as a black man have to rescue them. Black people and Guyanese people have problems in this traditionally poor country. And we as a multiracial society have to cater for their needs. That's what he's talking about. Somewhere in his psyche, he imagine that there is a black downtrodden race in Guyana and the Indians are better. The Indians, the Amerindians, and African people need to have the final elevation. the final dream of realizing the post-colonial arm.
Well, you've become an Indianist now. You're rivaling for Rafi Dev. And they have to call you up.
That would be a conversation, Ravi Dev. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very
You
much.
see more
It
Indian
is-
movies than Rafi
It
Dev.
has been a very I wouldn't say frantic. I would say that was a very frantic kind of show. I would say that I need a stiff drink after this, and I'm going to go to Pegasus and have that. But it was interesting because we have two persons, varying opinions here, and that is what the show is all about. We should have these kind of discussions, and of course, Freddie has invited himself on David Hinds' program. I'm going to be part of that, and Kritik and I are going to go at the back there to
Not
part
just
some
two
fight.
persons, Gildarie, two heavyweights in the field.
Yes,
that they're
two
discussing.
heavyweights, and it is good. These are the kind of conversations that we need in this country. And like I said before, I asked a question about who are the real enemies here. We're gonna come back to that because I do believe that sometimes we lost sight or we lose sight of what is really are the issues on the table. But it's good to have these discussions.
Can I just say something before we close? Let me repeat what we said here. We choose not to have a guest on Friday because Gildarie and I want to field your questions. So please start composing your questions and send them to us on Friday, and we will read them out and try to answer them to the best of our intellectual and multiracial capacity.
Thank you very much. And of course, we can't leave here without saying a thank you to our guest, Dr. David Hinds. And he has been gracious, at times a little righteous too, like Freddie. And that is good. That's what good conversation is all about. And we will continue that.
He libeled
Stay
me.
safe on the roadways.
He libeled me and go
protect
to
our
my
lives
lawyer.
and properties. And we are going to be back with you on Friday. Freddie and I alone this time. Have a pleasant rest of the night until we meet again.